Hello and good afternoon, everyone. I know we're right at 1 o'clock here, so we're going to get started for sake of time, starting at 1 o'clock sharp. I'm sure people will start filtering in as we move along, but we don't want to wait here for respect of everyone's time. This is going to be a really great one this month, guys. We're doing these. We're calling them virtual workshops on a monthly basis. This we have a very special guest speaker, Tim Gilfillan, right? Tim, I think I got it.
Correct.
Gilfillan.
Nailed it.
There you go. Got it. With Lincoln Financial. He is, or they've been a trusted company that we use for a long time now, among many. But Lincoln has been around for a long time, under the same name for I think it's 120 years now. They've seen the ups and downs of the market and of a lot of things, especially in the insurance industry as we specialize in. So I'm really excited that he's here to give us a really great topic on diversification planning. So I think it's going to be a really hot topic. It's going to be one that hopefully everyone has some great takeaways from. And with that, well, let me introduce myself. I know most of you know me and JT over to Manual Insurance, but I'm the director of long-term care, life and disability insurance here at Manual Insurance. Been in the business for about 10 years. This has been an area of specialty, meaning the tax diversification planning using some of the insurance strategies. It's been a specialty of mine specifically for that entire 10 years. We love working with business owners, small business owners, individuals, families, you name it. And yeah, we're really excited to have everyone here. JT, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself real quickly.
Yeah, I'm the Executive Director of Sales and Risk Management for Manual Insurance. Been here since 2010 and looking forward to always learning one or two nuggets, in these workshops. So I appreciate all who joined and continue to support us. We hope that you find this valuable time and you get a nice little nugget to bring to your clients or the people that you're connected with. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tim.
Perfect. And actually, Tim, before you do get started, sorry.
Yeah.
If anyone has questions, whatever it is, you want to type something in the chat, there's also a Q&A section in there. Type away. We'll make sure, I'm sure Tim will work through a lot of those questions as he speaks, but we'll make sure to get to the questions at the end. So appreciate everyone. Now take it away, Tim.
I love it. Thank you guys so much. When it comes down to it, I know it's an absolute privilege taking time out of your day to be part of the conversation here today. So it is not overlooked by me, and it's a privilege to be here. Dylan, JT, thank you so much for the invite to, kind of get an opportunity to kind of share a little insights on this call. So, really what I want to talk about here today as part of the invitation is we're going to touch base a little bit on Lincoln has a really unique insight because of our breadth of industry and how we serve Americans, through our many retirement distribution arms, allows us to work with a lot of asset managers from around the globe and give us a lot of real product agnostic, market type insights. All this is completely at no charge, no product, alignment to it whatsoever. And it is free to subscribe as a financial professional and certainly available to use from a general public standpoint. So it gives you a lot of information for you to be able to help make decisions. And, certainly as, talking with Dylan, as we coach different individuals throughout our engagements, it gives us a lot of tools and resources to use. So no matter which asset manager you're out there using, we certainly have a relationship with them. Dylan kind of already mentioned, we've been in business 120 years effectively here in 2025, since 1905, guys. So we have been through the market's ups and downs, and we've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we're still here to talk to you about it. And we do that because of being a conservative, trusted partner out there in the industry. So as I kick it off today, there's really three things I'm going to highlight. First, we're going to talk a little bit about market insights, what's going on, how that's, potentially affecting conversations. We're going to talk through a couple key concepts. So there's going to be some key concepts that are really resonating from a tax planning point of view, as we look at the door closing on tax day here just a short while ago. But as we look forward, some of the strategies, the key strategies that are being seen, being leveraged in a lot of conversations. If you have any of these questions, again, I will highlight what Dylan already mentioned. Drop something in the chat. Dylan, I'm going to rely on you to relay the chat. I don't see the chat live while I'm speaking. But if there is a pause where you want me to answer something timely, feel free to interrupt. I'm totally fine, or we could wait till the end, whichever the group prefers, right? And then lastly, I'm going to touch on a very high level of some more of advanced, is the way that I would call it, which is some more advanced estate planning techniques that are being used more frequently, and touch base on a little bit why, in case you have any questions you want to direct back to Dylan. So as I open it up with a little market insights here today, let's talk a little bit about the economy, right? Hot buzzword. When we look at, the change of administration, some change in policies, it's been a very fluid situation. Not here today to go in and talk about whether tariffs are terrific or terrifying, right? But the fact is, markets are changing rapidly, and how you position yourself and the people that you trust for advice is really, really important, right? So let's talk about one of the biggest obstacles in the room. And the chart that's in front of you here today comes from our friends over at Hartford Funds. And this looks back over the last 20 years over 12-month CDs. And why we're particularly calling out CD usage is because in 2023, it reached an all-time high of United States consumers purchasing CDs. What does this tell us when we look at this type of data? The need for growth and the want for protection has never been higher in the United States. And so much so, when we look at what CDs were going for, in the 12-month range in 2023, the average American bought a 12-month CD at about a little over 5.3%. But when we think about taxes, we think about where inflation's been, the real net is less than a full percentage point, about 75 basis points overall net, 0.75%. So it doesn't really net the overall yield that you think when you're going in and buying these CDs after you take into effect two of the big core tenets of taxes and inflation. Well, how big is this opportunity when we're looking at Americans with this behavior? Well, the amount of CDs that came out of and into maturity in Q4 2024, so the end of last year, the 3 months ending last year, it was $950 billion that came to maturity. The single largest quarter in recorded United States history, the largest quarter ever. Now in 2025, there's $2.5 trillion coming to maturity in CDs in the United States in all of 2025. So you can see that, like some of you on this call, if you're owning CDs, the fact is Americans across the country flew into CDs as a safe haven. And as they're coming out, the environment looks unbelievably different today than when they purchased just in 2023. And if we looked at some of the data, I saw the preliminary data here, and certainly I can share an updated grid with Dylan that can share with every one of you. 2024 numbers going into the tail end of 25 look to be a little less than 2024 in overall tonnage, but the overall real return is approximately a third less. So it's about 50 basis points yields coming off of 2024 purchases. So the story continues that CDs tend to drag a portfolio after you look past just the surface rate that you're getting. So again, this shows us a lot of the consumer behavior is about the need for safety, then obviously that want for a growth opportunity. Now, what does this mean overall? So in 2023, 2024, we really saw back-to-back, high, mid 20% returns when it comes down to the S&P. And that's happened 8 times previous before 23-24. 23-24 marked the 9th time that's happened in United States history. And what is the average return in the third year following back-to-back 20s? The average return is about 12%. Some years are a little bit lower, some years for the most part a little bit higher, but overall the return is about 12%. Now, some of you might be scratching your head and saying, well, there's been a lot of noise here this past April. What does that look like? I'll get to that in just a second. But historically speaking, we're right in line with the historical averages. And when we're looking at what some of the top asset managers from around the world are predicting, They're pretty much right in line. Most asset managers are calling for about a 12.5% gain this year. Some of them have some revised outlooks where it's come down just a little bit. Some are saying we're going to see somewhere between 9 and 11. But overall, the overall, when we're taking the peaks and the valleys, the overall return is right there, roughly around 12%, right there with the historical average of what we've seen after back-to-back 20s. What does that mean for a lot of conversations? Let's talk about when you're sitting on the bench. Clients that sit on the bench are really worried about one thing: noise, emotional decisions. They sit on the bench because they're emotional about what's happening. And there is no greater fear than what we've experienced over the last 20 some odd days here. So when you think about this noise, this inter-year decline, it happens every year. The average inter-year decline at some point during a 12-month window of January through December, it averages, as you can see in the top blue box here on the right-hand side, averages a little over 14% every single year. If you want to look back since 1993, the blue boxes on your screen in any given year talk about the inter-year decline that happened in every single year. So, whether you look at 2024 being a stellar year, finishing up 23, would your clients realize that they were down 8% at one point in 2024 before it rebounded to go up 23%? Or in 2023, they were down 10% at one time before rebounding to be up 24 at the end of 2023? So the fact is this: conversations to get invested are critical, but ultimately staying invested is the most critical piece of the conversation. Absolutely has the largest impact on where you end up in your ultimate destination of whether or not you can accumulate to that mountaintop where you feel comfortable retiring. So staying invested is way more critical than even just getting in the door and getting invested. Sitting on the sidelines in cash or cash alternatives like money market, checking, and savings really misses out on those opportunities. Because when we think about markets, they move three ways: they go up, they go down, and they rebound, right? If we look at what we saw most recently, we've seen markets come back. Then a day later, they're swinging back up. We saw markets come way down last week. Now, all of a sudden, here we are Wednesday. Markets came down about 3% on Monday, up 3% yesterday, now up again today. So again, it talks about the fact that there's no replacement for staying invested. But where you stay invested can make a difference. So if you can add safety along with growth, and when you're working with Dylan and you want to have some other additional questions for Dylan, there are many strategies here at Lincoln and some of the other partners that Dylan has on his palette that can give you both of those. The zero opportunity and the fact that you'll never lose a penny, but be able to capitalize on these rebounds and these upswings. So lots of opportunity there. Now, how often do we see drawdowns? I'm really just going to call your attention to the left-hand side of this slide. Markets decrease at least 5%, 91% of the time, and we see somewhere between a 10 and 15% drawdown over half of the time in markets. So that's where we're at today. We've seen markets decline over, just about 15%, from where we were just a short while ago, a couple months ago, and that happens 1 out of every 2 years, guys. So we're not in uncharted territory. So what does that mean for you? So before I talk about, what this can mean to you, how can you best position yourself to take advantage of where we're at today? Dylan, was there any questions that came up with anything I went over so far?
Nope, nothing so far.
Okay, well, feel free, guys, to type in the chat if you have a quick question. Love to get to that as we kind of move forward. So with that being said, reach out to Dylan, JT, have a conversation. If any of this stuff resonates, if you're looking at the opportunity here to think about how you can add safety and still maximize growth, excuse me, and, incorporate that to very, very successful outcomes. Now, as I pivot to one of my second topics here, when we look at what happened in 2020 and at the end of 22 with the passing of the Secure Act and the passing of the Secure Act 2.0, it really changed what happens when we pass away with IRAs, 401ks, and ultimately, those types of qualified funds and how they go to the family. The family now has to spend them down within 10 years. So this puts a lot of people that are inheriting funds from their parents or even grandparents, inheriting large sums of cash in their prime earning years, potentially pushing them into higher and higher tax brackets, paying Uncle Sam more and more portion of the pie. So how do you leverage that? Well, one of the key statistics that we've seen with a lot of planners is the push and overwhelming desire to drive a lot more Roth conversions. And that is taking the opportunity to convert your IRA or qualified assets to Roth status. So you get the benefit of tax-free growth, tax-free dollar for dollar withdrawals, and ultimately upon death, those funds go tax-free to the beneficiary. So where does this fit, right? Orphaned 401k plans, not quite sure what's going on with them. Great opportunity to roll over, maybe get ahead of, an RMD, which in any other world but the financial services industry would be called forced liquidation, right? Government forces you to liquidate those IRA assets once you hit RMD age. They call it a fancy word to make it sound better. They call it an RMD, but it's really just forced liquidation. So why not convert it to Roth on your own schedule, mitigating some of the tax burden, and then ultimately you don't have to take that RMD and you get the benefit of the tax-free growth and the tax-free distribution down the road. Well, Lincoln makes it simple. One application for your IRA, you check a box that you want to create a mirrored contract. We create an IRA and Roth side by side. You get the same opportunities, same start date, same end date, same indexing options across the board. You can choose to pay your taxes from within the conversion or outside, however you see fit. So maximum flexibility. And I will tell you that we changed this application on our platform about my partner's on here about 19 months ago. And I will tell you, it is drastically accelerated how much we see in Roth conversions. And it is a absolute game changer with planners around the country. So if this isn't something that you've had a conversation about, I highly recommend that this is something that you work into the conversation. Now, second concept that we're seeing a lot with is, these inherited IRAs, using them to purchase, an immediate payout where it gives you 10 equal payments over 10 years, and using that to fund long-term care policies, using that to fund, life insurance policies, that then you get the benefit on the life insurance side of tax-free retirement dollar drawdowns. Or on the long-term care, I'm sure if we pulled everybody on this call, the average statistic is that 55% of Americans know what it's like to take care of an elderly family member that's had a long-term care event or needed memory care of some sort. So if you're inheriting opportunity of funds from a prior generation, and you have the ability to incorporate long-term care to protect your family, your children, and insulate them from the cost and the burden of what long-term care can do to a family, this is a great way, again, to mitigate some of the taxes, to maximize the protection for the family, and really take an opportunity there to incorporate and retain, assets inside that family that make a real nice opportunity. And as I bring it to a close here for my talking portion of this call, the one thing I want to touch on a high level, we've seen an increased amount of, which is utilizing trusts inside the planning sector and where they really fit. Again, this is a high level conversation. I am not going to get into the details today of all the different trusts that are available, but know that trust planning, when you're looking at your estate, I jokingly say this, but there's so much truth to it. You either trust your kids or have a trust for your kids, right? Maybe you got a spendthrift child. Maybe you have a child with special needs, or maybe you have a child that, maybe has difficulty really managing money, and you want to go ahead and have a little bit of control from the grave. Trust can do a great job with that. Certain types of trust can also help you avoid, not only probate, but estate taxes. And if you happen to live in a state that has state inheritance taxes, certain types of trusts that are irrevocable give you the ability to bypass state inheritance taxes as well. So trust can be an incredible planning vehicle as you're looking to earmark funds for the next generation, and or put a little bit more control on how your family wants to leverage those assets, long after you're gone, and you can see that, take care of, the family the way that you want. One of the ways and success stories that my partner PJ, who's on the call with us here today as well, we've recently had a family that had a large sum of cash, and there was an elderly couple, and they had a house down the shore or the beach, if you're not from New Jersey. And the opportunity there was, this family's been in their, this house has been in their family for 2 generations. So they're the second elderly couple that has owned it, through the family. And they wanted to make sure that this house stayed for many more to come, and their grandchildren and their great grandchildren had a chance to take care of it. they were able to build, a strategy together utilizing a trust to make sure that it always covered the taxes, and it's set up to make sure that the taxes are paid for the next 70 years. So, these types of things, that's a little extreme. They wanted to go 70 years on it. But the fact is, whether it's something that you want to incorporate to hold on to a family tradition, trust can be a real great planning tool when it comes down to making sure you protect those emotional memories that you have, whether it's at a house or an annual vacation or just earmarking funds to make sure that the family gets to use those funds for what you really intend them for. So with that being said, Dylan, I appreciate the time today. I'm going to kick it back to you to open it up for some Q&A, and then certainly, take it from there. So thank you for the time.
No, I appreciate it, Tim. Yeah, and while we wait for some, I haven't seen any come through yet, but while we wait for some questions come through the chat, I just want to say the beautiful part about all of this and everything that Tim pointed out and spoke on is that we have an amazing network of financial advisors, wealth planners, wealth managers, CPAs, accountants, many of you on this call today, that we are able to rely on and lean on in a way and work together to implement a lot of these different strategies. So I think what Emmanuel Insurance and myself and JT and Tim, I would include you in that, where we specialize, it really works well in tandem with a lot of our strategic relationships. And many of you know that. But either way, I hope everyone was able to take away some nugget. Even some of our financial advisors on the call and CPAs take away some nugget, some way that we could maybe continue to work together, and some of our clients as well take away something that we could possibly implement for you to help in that tax diversification strategy, help things just become more efficient in what you're planning today. So with that, JT, I don't know if you had anything else to add. I know we can also open it up if anyone would like to just unmute and ask questions or throw something in the chat.
Sure.
I'm sure there must be some, so don't feel shy.
Yes. So can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the great talk. I appreciate the fact that it was so much content in such little time. It's not easy. Would you be able to, Tim, would you be able to share your slides one more time, page 8,
Sure.
please? Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. So you wanted me to go back here, you said?
Page 8.
Yeah.
One more up.
Yeah.
One up.
This one?
There we
Yeah.
go. There we go. Yes. So points taken on what you were kind of advising there. But I couldn't help noticing the pain years, right? Like 2008, the years where we had like 2015, 2018, or back-to-backs in the 2000s, which I think, I don't know the ages here, but a lot of us remember probably. So what tells you, if anything, that we are not heading that direction of 3 back-to-back years, or even like a very extreme year like 2008? Is there anyone saying that there are indications that we are not going that direction?
So, obviously you're pointing out years, and obviously when you see like in 2008, there was a max drawdown of 49, and then it rebounded back up to only being down 38, right? So great opportunity there. So a lot of the sentiment, we're waiting for the updated, overall sentiment coming out of Q1. We did get some updates, but they want to update it after April. For the most part, most of the analysts are revising, total year projections. We're still seeing solid, like mid to single digit growth for this year over most of them. Some are still shooting closer to that 12.5 range that we saw in the previous slide. But for the most part, most are revising into the low to mid single digits. They're still seeing, there's a couple of factors to that in play, and I don't want to get the cart in front of the horse here, but a lot of them are saying if we see some tariff relief, which read an article in the journal today that it looks like there's some potential relief coming to the China situation rather rapidly here based off of some recent conversations. If the tariff relief hits, it's going to start to supercharge back in the north direction with seeing market bounce back. If we see the adaptation and the trade deals over the next 90 days go into effect, that also will super fuel the growth. So a lot of that has to hinge on the fact that, when we look at the first 90 days of the new administration, it has been fast, furious, shock and awe, and the market's just trying to make sense of it. But when you start to see a lot of the, where we're at historically, we're really well within historical ranges in a lot of categories. Really, the only laggard that we have is consumer sentiment right now, right? That is lagging well below historical averages. So as that comes more in line, which tends to be pretty fickle when it comes down to overall purchasing power in the wallet, and right now Americans are trying to figure that out, right? As we're figuring out more of that macro trade environment. So I think, where you're going to see it land when we have the updated slide, I'll make sure I share that with Dylan and he gets it out to you guys, is you're going to see that mid to high single digit return range is where they're going to see the end of 24. But that's going to be very prescriptive, not predictive, but prescriptive on these trade deals getting done. And then also on a little bit more of that China relief that it looks like is happening in real time.
Thank you so much.
Very much. Yeah. Certainly I don't predict that we're going to see another 20% year, a triple 20. I don't think we're going to see that. I think we're again going to see that low to mid single digit, in the short term by the end of 24, probably that mid to high single digit.
And that's why it's so important that you stay invested and continue to, protect yourself. The thing that I appreciate about this is utilizing and being creative with ways to pay for protection, right? Because the question that we're always receiving is like, okay, JT, Dylan, why would I buy this long-term care policy when my internal rate of return with my financial advisor, like I'm getting these 12% annual returns. And if I have this policy in place for over 25 years, the internal rate of return continues to go down. But I think what a lot of people miss is that you're utilizing this not just as, it's not an investment vehicle, but it's a asset protection vehicle so that you're not paying down dollar for dollar for care. And it's like, it's here, it's set, it's put away. So being able to utilize an annuity to be able to purchase it, or the IRA where you have to take those funds and move it somewhere, why not use that to protect these assets?
I mean, JT, if you don't mind, I'll kind of jump in here. I mean, when you talk about an inherited IRA, it's a guaranteed 100% fleeting asset, right? Like that's leaving your books whether you want it or not, right? Like it is leaving, it's going out the door. And let's be honest, when most clients get their hands on cash and it wasn't their cash to begin with that they earned, they're spending it, right? They're spending it, it's gone. You're not managing that asset anymore. So by utilizing strategies that leverage, give you leverage to go ahead and incorporate something like JT was talking about, like with long-term care, this gives you the ability to gain and retain that asset on your books. And if you're not the one talking about these strategies with clients, somebody else is, right? The average American has 3 people they look to for financial advice, one of them usually being a best friend or a confidant, 2 usually being somebody in the industry. And then as they get closer to retirement, they typically funnel it down to the person that they feel was the most correct, or the person that was most honest, and talk to them about different strategies. Whether they chose to implement them or not is totally irrelevant. But the ones that go ahead and showcase different strategies, because the worst case scenario, think about it. You're at a party, somebody else tells you something that maybe their financial advisor told them, and your financial advisor never brought it up. Your accountant never brought up a mitigation strategy. You automatically feel like, am I doing something wrong? Am I working with the right people? Don't ever want to sow that bit of doubt in any client's conversation. So it's an opportunity to build trust by talking to them about the other opportunities that are out there to best insulate them. And, long-term care being one of those, it's not about, necessarily all the high-end growth you get in it, but it mitigates the conversation of, oh, hey, mom or dad's now needs full-time care. What asset are we selling first? And then throwing darts at what asset you're going to unwind, right? It buys time to say, we're going to use the long-term care. It gives us times to be tax, I don't want to say favorable, but tax particular in what assets we unwind if this event prolongs itself. Yeah. And you get to be a lot more strategic in that unwinding of the estate.
Yeah, and God forbid we're in one of those years where it's a down year, right? Because then it's even
Sure.
worse. You're in a down year and you have to sell assets and get out of the market. That's worst case scenario right there. But
sequence of returns or sequential risk is the most daunting thing that's out there. Absolutely, without a doubt.
Yeah. Well, we're at the 1:30 mark, Tim. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing your knowledge with us.
Sure.
Our next workshop will be in May, and Dylan will send out the details of that. Also, guys, if there's certain things that you want us to bring to the table and talk about in particular, let us know. This is something that we're growing and doing, and our goal is to help equip you with everything that you need, and also for us to learn at the same time.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off that too, please share any ideas, any different topics you guys would like to hear. We're going to have many different guest speakers come on, which I think is a really great opportunity for us to continue to learn and take away some value from it, myself as well. I learn from some of these too sometimes. If anyone has any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us. I will be sending the recording of all of this so everyone has it, and then each of you'll have my contact information to reach out at any point. So thank you so much, everyone who took the half hour out of their busy afternoon. And thank you again, Tim. Really appreciate you.
Thanks for the opportunity. Everybody have a great afternoon.
All right, you too.
Thank you, everyone.